Somewhere today, a child pressed a painted hand onto paper and gave it to a parent to hang on the fridge. It is such an ordinary thing. A small hand, a little smear of color, a way of saying without words, I was here. But the real answer to why humans do this is far stranger and far older than you think. Because 39,000 years ago, in the freezing dark of a cave, another human pressed their hand against stone and blew paint around it. And we are still staring at that handprint today. Why did they do it? For a long time, the answer seemed obvious. Cave paintings show animals: bison, horses, deer, lions. So people assumed it was simple. Early humans painted the animals they hunted. Maybe it was decoration. Maybe it was a kind of magic to bring good luck on the hunt. But then, people started to actually look at where these paintings are, and the obvious answer fell apart. Because the paintings are not near the entrance where people lived. They are not where the light is. Many of the greatest works are hidden deep inside the earth, hundreds of meters down, through tunnels so tight you have to crawl on your stomach in total darkness. To make them, someone had to carry fire into a place with no air and no exit in sight, and paint by a flame that could go out at any moment. Nobody crawls half a kilometer into a pitch-black cave just to decorate a wall. So this was not decoration. This was something people risked their lives to do. And that changes the entire question. Consider the Chauvet Cave in France. Its paintings are around 36,000 years old. Lions, rhinos, and bears drawn with a skill that would embarrass many modern artists. Shading, perspective, animals drawn in motion, as if running across the rock. These were not the scribbles of primitive minds. They were made by people whose brains were exactly like yours. And then there is the age. On the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia, an archaeologist named Maxime Aubert helped date a painting of a wild pig. It is at least 45,000 years old. That makes it one of the oldest known paintings of a real thing anywhere on Earth. 45,000 years. The pyramids are 4,500 years old. This painting is 10 times older than that. So what would drive people all over the world for tens of thousands of years to crawl into the dark and paint? Here is where it gets strange. A researcher named David Lewis Williams spent his life studying this. And he noticed something. Alongside the animals, the caves are full of strange patterns. Dots, grids, zigzags, spirals, nested curves, shapes that do not look like anything in the real world. Where, he asked, do those shapes come from? The answer he proposed is unsettling. Those exact patterns are the ones the human brain produces on its own, in the dark, in altered states of consciousness. When people enter a deep trance, through rhythm, through exhaustion, through fasting or firelight, the visual part of the brain begins to fire on its own. And it produces dots, grids, zigzags, and spirals, the same shapes, in every human being, because we all carry the same brain. Lewis Williams argued that the caves were not art galleries. They were sacred places. People went into the deep dark, into a world with no light and no sound, and there, in the flicker of a single flame, they entered a trance. The cave wall was not a canvas. It was a membrane, a thin surface between this world and another. And when they painted an animal onto the rock, they may have believed they were not drawing it. They were pulling it through. Think about what that means. The oldest art on Earth may not be about beauty at all. It may be humanity's first attempt to touch the invisible. But the animals and the trance patterns are only part of the story. Because scattered through these caves is something even harder to explain: symbols. The same symbols again and again, across thousands of miles and thousands of years. A researcher named Genevieve von Petzinger did something no one had really done. She traveled across Europe and cataloged the abstract signs in cave after cave. And she found that they were not random. Across the entire continent, over a span of 20,000 years, the same small set of about 32 signs appears over and over. The same shapes, used by people who never met, separated by an unimaginable gulf of time. That is not doodling. That is a code, a shared system, passed down through hundreds of generations. Some scientists think it may be one of the very first steps toward writing itself, tens of thousands of years before the first written word. So these humans in the dark were not just painting. They were recording, remembering, trying to hold something and pass it on, which brings us to the handprints. In caves across the world, from France to Argentina to Indonesia, you find them. Human hands, pressed to the wall, outlined in paint, blown from the mouth. Some are small, the hands of children. Some are missing fingers, thousands of them, reaching out of the stone. And here's the part that should stop you. A handprint is not a bison. It is not a symbol or a trance vision. A handprint is a person. It is the single most direct thing one human can leave behind. It says, with no language at all, I existed. I was real. My hand was here, on this exact spot. 40,000 years later, you can place your own hand over theirs, and it fits. That person had a name you will never know. They had parents, and fears, and a voice, and a whole inner world, all of it gone, erased so completely it is as if it never happened. Everything about them has vanished, except this. One outline of a hand, pressed against the dark, that outlasted their entire civilization, their language, their gods, and every single person they ever loved. They were reaching forward through time, and whether they knew it or not, they were reaching for you. So think about what these caves really are. They are not primitive scribbles. They are the first evidence of a human mind that could imagine other worlds, invent symbols, and refuse to be forgotten. Everything that makes you human, the art, the religion, the writing, the desperate need to leave a mark, is already there, 40,000 years ago, painted in the dark by firelight. And here is the uncomfortable mirror. You do the same thing, every single day. You carve your initials into a tree. You write your name on wet concrete. You post a photo, not because anyone truly needs to see it, but because some part of you needs the world to know you were here. You build, you create, you sign your work, you have children, you tell your story. All of it is the same instinct that drove someone to crawl into a freezing cave and blow paint around their hand. We have not changed. We have only found new walls. The technology is different. The feeling is exactly the same. Across 40,000 years, a single unbroken thread runs from that painted hand in the dark straight to the screen you are looking at right now. The terror of vanishing without a trace. The need to say, before the darkness takes you, that you were real. So somewhere today, a child pressed a painted hand onto paper and gave it to a parent to hang on the fridge. They do not know it yet. But they are doing the oldest, most human thing there is. The same thing someone did in the freezing dark 40,000 years ago. Reaching out of their own small moment, into a future they will never see, and saying the only thing that has ever really mattered. I was here.